Hi.
Hello. Jazz
Hello.
hands.
Hey, Amy. Hey, Ashley. Hello, everyone. Welcome to your Empathy Power Up, your weekly dose of empathy, where we'll come in and just power us all up with a little bit of empathy to get us through the week and just come back with growth and new learnings. And this month, and this is our last episode of March, which is our series on Wonder Women. And we have another incredible guest joining us in this series, where we're celebrating amazing women and during Women History Month in March. And we've got Ashley Jablow with us. Welcome, Ashley, to
Oh,
Power
thank
Up.
you. Thank you. Spirit fingers, spirit fingers. So
Uh,
excited.
Ashley is a CEO of Wayfinders Collective and is the creator of What Comes Next program, is a self-directed, empathetic leader with deep applied experience in human-centered design, self-development, leadership development, and innovation in both social and public sector, and as well experience in online learning. Ashley is a self-proclaimed prototyper, and I love that, and a lifelong learner who loves running experiments and using creativity and intention to design her own life and help others design theirs. So it is amazing to get to know, get to talk to you and get to see you. So Ashley, welcome to the Empathy Power Up. And Amy, looking forward to learning from this engagement.
Yes. I'm glad to have you, Ashley. And thank you for joining us. One of the things I wanted to see, and I'm actually wearing my T-shirt today, the Presidential Innovation Fellows program, is like we've crossed each other's on paths, our paths in that program, and we're representing today. But also, we have actually had some interesting intersections along the way with some of where we're been heading with some of our work. So I'd love to understand, like, how did you discover the path that you're on right now? And how did you get there?
Oh, it's a great opening question. I just want to say thank you again for having me. What a treat. I've been looking forward to this afternoon all day, all week. So thank you so much for having me. And, it's interesting, Amy. I love that you use the words discover and path, because I think when I think about my own career, it has been a really winding sort of discovery, circuitous route. And for anyone who's watching who thinks like, I'm a generalist, like I don't know what my thing is. I remember actually a colleague of ours in the PIF program. He was always so clear on like what content he wanted to work on, what kind of role he wanted to have. And I always looked at him and thought, like, I want that. I want to go be a doctor and know exactly what I should do to go be that doctor. Or I want to be a teacher and know exactly what I should do to what steps I need to take. And my career, I think actually for better, not even for better or worse, but for better, has been much more of a winding road. So I started out in the nonprofit sector, working in philanthropy and fundraising. I got my MBA and thought I would work in CSR and sustainability. And then very randomly, like literally randomly, got a job at IDEO, one of the world's best known design thinking and innovation firms. And frankly, knew nothing about design thinking or innovation. I still to this day am like, wow, I can't believe they let me in the front door. But it was a great opportunity to really drink the Kool-Aid and learn and kind of absorb this way of working, this way of using design thinking to create change in the world, create change inside organizations, to innovate full stop, which of course is what led me to the Presidential Innovation Fellows program and to us getting to know each other. So at a certain point, if you look at that story, my story, from the outside looking in, things probably seem to follow a pretty clear progression. Even on the inside, it still felt like, what am I doing? Right. But all of it really came to a head in 2017. I found myself really unexpectedly laid off from a role in the private sector. And I'd been unemployed before, but I had never actually done it of not my own choosing, right? Like I'd taken pauses, but to have the rug pulled out from under me like that was really awful in a lot of ways, of course.
Yeah.
And I even at the time knew that I had been given a gift. I just didn't know to what extent it really was a gift. And now looking back 5 years later, I can see how the path has evolved and wound even further. But I really used it as an opportunity, that moment of saying, like, I could go this way and get another job, or I could be curious and look slightly in a different direction and consider what else might really inspire me, what might fulfill me, what does a meaningful career that sits inside a meaningful life, what does that look like for me? And what ended up happening is I turned really all of the methods and mindsets that I'd practiced from the world of design thinking inside organizations, I turned them on myself. And I said, let me create, I actually called it a 60-day design sprint to redesign my life. And it's like what is that saying? When we make plans, the universe laughs, right? So of course, like, I thought I would have it all figured out in 60 days. I definitely didn't. But I had the most kind of important milestone moment during that time. It was a summer, and I had said by Labor Day, I will have solved this problem. I will have figured this out. And just before Labor Day, I was actually on a flight, a red-eye flight from Portland, Oregon to Washington, D.C., where I was living. And, when you're on a red-eye flight, you are either asleep, like some people are able to sleep on red-eyes, or you're sitting in the dark angry because you're not asleep. Like, those are the only two options.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so I was the latter, and I was sitting there and just stewing, just so just unhappy and upset. Like, why haven't I figured this out yet? And out of nowhere, this phrase popped into my head, and the phrase was creative wayfinding. And I thought, that's actually really interesting. Like, that's what I'm doing. I'm using the tools and resources and my network, even my intuition, to find my way through this transition moment. And in fact, that's what we're all doing. It's like one of the most universal human experiences, right? Is to find our way and to make choices that are aligned with our true nature, our true selves. And so I didn't sleep on that flight, but I did walk off the plane with this notion of a collective of wayfinders. And that has really been my guiding light over the last 5 years. And I'm happy to talk more about my business and how it evolved, because it's like a continuous evolution. But that was really the seed of the path that I'm on today.
That's incredible. And thank you for sharing that story, because I think a lot of us don't make space. We were just talking about this, Kevin, like, we don't always make space for us to rest, but we also need space for us to think. And these amazing ideas come at the most, like, the times when we are resting or we're in transition to something or one thing or another. And I wanted to touch base on something where you talked about how, which has an intersection with my work, is this idea of just this idea of wayfinding, right? Intuition comes to mind, right? And sensing what the world needs, what you need. And I see that as huge overlap with empathy, right? And the work that I've been doing in the research for the book, and then also since then. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you see empathy being part of your work?
Yeah, I love that. And it's such an interesting question, because for me, when I put on my design thinking hat, empathy is like core to that way of working. It starts with really going out and observing other people's human experiences and learning about them, learning about their needs, and then designing with empathy for their experience in mind, right? That's sort of the cornerstone of design thinking. And what I've learned in my own work, and just frankly, when I own a business that's about growing into our fullest selves and really designing a life and a career that we love, my professional work is really my personal work, right? And so what I've learned is that the same methods and mindsets, of particularly empathy in this case, that work in a design thinking context inside organizations can work for our own professional and personal development as well. And it really starts with turning that empathy muscle inward, right? Bringing compassion to ourselves, bringing love and grace and kindness to ourselves. And I'll admit some days I'm really good at it, and other days I'm like, oh, yep, here's another chance to practice, right? A great example today even was I get a lot of sense of achievement from how hard I work. That is like a kind of an underlying belief that I'm constantly trying to break apart. And I woke up, I always take a walk in the morning, and the last couple of mornings I've really been like exercising when I do. I put on some good music and I really get going. And I've been proud of like, wow, I really hustled on that walk yesterday. And today I woke up and I was feeling a little tired and a little slower. And I found myself just in my own self-talk getting kind of down on like, oh, you're moving slower today. What's wrong? Like, has all my progress been eroded? I mean, it's amazing how quickly the spinning starts in our heads, right? And so finding opportunities even to coach ourselves around like, am I speaking kindly? I mean, I don't even think that's empathy yet, Amy, but like, am I just speaking kindly to myself? Am I bringing care and understanding to myself in this moment? Then being able to tune into, what do I really need? What am I really yearning for? What does my intuition say? Those are like next level skills, I think. But at a baseline, just like, would you talk to your best friend the way you're talking to yourself right now? And can you have empathy for the person that you are and the place that you're in this moment in your life?
Love what you shared there, because I think I got it like recently. I've been going through a little bit of similar journey. Like over the weekend, there was some growth and there was parts of my behavior I didn't like. And so I immediately started spiraling. I was like, you're a horrible person, blah, 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 like telling myself that, right?
Yep.
And just this morning and last night, I was thinking, if we aren't able to love ourselves or be kind to ourselves, it is very difficult for us to genuinely be kind and to others and love others, right? And so it is in our interest, if we want to show genuine love and be authentic outwards, we need to be authentic inwards. And so love the message you shared there. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I was thinking too, because it's what you show outwardly is also what you share inwardly to yourself. Like, so if you say, I'm not good enough, or like, this is not going to turn out well, right? That's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy in this world, right? And so how do you, like, maybe what are some tools that you use to keep positive on this route? Because it is a lot of change that you're talking about and a lot of engagement that you're doing, and trying to think about what the future might look like, but it's also really, really hard work.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I mean, I would say we could write a book about this, and also there are a million books about this.
Yes, there is. Yes.
So to think about like, how do I, what advice I have for others going through this, it's not a quick answer and it's not a quick fix, right? But when I think about, particularly, okay, so if we consider, we were talking about intuition and bringing empathy into ourself and our self-understanding. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just start to pay attention. And what I mean by that, whether you want to bucket it under the umbrella of mindfulness or presence or spirituality, whatever like language works for you, I think what has really made a difference for me is starting to pay attention to even just I call them body breadcrumbs. Like, what are the clues, the signs, the physical intelligence that I'm actually might be pushing away or trying not to pay attention to? And what changes for me if I start to tune into them? So not even our thoughts. I mean, starting to notice and pay attention to our thoughts is absolutely an entire aisle at the bookstore, right? And it's super powerful. And I work on it every single day. And I'm learning so much about myself and how I work. But even just physically, like a great example I have is, at least it's relevant for me, when I was looking for jobs back before I started my business. And I would sit in interviews for jobs that I like physically knew in my being were not right for me. And every time the hiring manager would be like, we're looking for someone who can do A, B, and C. Is that you? And I would say, yes, it is. You know, when I knew it wasn't right. And so, you know, to design a life that we love, design careers that are meaningful, even to just enjoy our day to day, the first step I think is starting to pay attention to where are the places where we are out of alignment. The one book I will share that has really transformed the way I think about this is a book by Martha Beck called The Way of Integrity. And she talks about living in integrity means being whole. It means being integrated and starting to pay attention to the moments when we disconnect, we disintegrate from our true selves, and we fall under the influence of what our culture, you know, culture with a capital C, like what our culture, our norms, our social structures require of us or ask of us. And that interview moment is a great example. In my true nature, I knew that it wasn't right. And I was choosing very, both like intentionally and subconsciously to not pay attention to that. And that got me into situations that you can imagine were not great, right? So I would say first and foremost, starting with just noticing even the physical sensations that you have in your body. You know, when you have conversations with people, are your shoulders up here? Are your fists really tight? You know, are your arms crossed? Or are you relaxed? Are your feet firmly planted? These are all really powerful indicators of when we are in alignment and integrity. And it's from that place that we can begin to imagine, like, what do I want for my life? But we have to start there.
Yeah. Wow. That's so important because I think in the past we've talked about somatic healing, right? And how important that is to healing from trauma. But I mean, that's a whole story into itself. But like that idea of just noticing is so good for the healing of the soul. So
and an example what is again resonates for me is in this weekend and a lot of similar situations, there's something that naturally just I would do is I would hold myself like this, or I would do this, and around friends or around people, and they would notice it and they would tell me like, why are you doing that? Or relax, and they would try to get me to relax, and it just naturally happens. And then I wasn't noticing. I wasn't I knew I was doing it, but I didn't know why. And then I realized that it was because I have a need for touch. I like touch. I like that experience, and that is something that gives me comfort and I need. It's like it's almost like if I don't get it for a while. So this is me just doing that and protecting myself and giving me that. And so when I started getting more of that and getting it from my husband or other experiences, it started relaxing. So I like how this was like almost like a reflected example of what you shared.
Yeah. I love that. And I'll just build on it briefly and say, you know, how we show up, right? The energy that we inhabit, our body language, whatever it is, so much of that is unconscious. Like we don't consider, how do I want to be in this moment? And it has an impact on the people around you, the space that you're in, and even what you can achieve. Right. So that's one of the things I work on with my coaching clients is considering, like, how do you want to be in any given situation? Maybe it's an interview, maybe it's a conversation with your partner, maybe it's on vacation, whatever it is, but being intentional about how you show up, because it will have an impact, not just on your experience, but on what you actually create in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Go with your gut.
with your
Yeah. And so Ashley, we're pretty much at time now. It's gone by so fast. Like
I
we
know.
talked about it. But I want you to like let people know how they find you. What is the way that they can find you? Like the way
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you can definitely find me on LinkedIn as well as on Instagram at Ashley Jablow. I share content every day, both what resources, inspiration, as well as what am I learning on my own journey. So I love sharing that part of it. And then you can also go to wayfinderscollective.com/subscribe and join my newsletter. So I have a weekly newsletter where I share, again, what am I learning, as well as awesome opportunities to join me in conversations just like this one. So I would love to have people join there as well.
Yes, and I particularly loved the series where you would draw something every single day on like a sticky note. So that was something that I really loved, and like I learned so much from those little notes that you drew out. So
Thank you.
thank you for being here, Ashley. And Kevin, you want to close us out?
Yeah, thank you so much. This month has been meeting amazing women, and Ashley, thanks for helping wrap the month up. And I see as these are women that are making history now and making impact generations into the future. And so thank you for the intentionality you're bringing into yourself and every space you're doing. And I think that is the key piece, is if we put intention behind things with a lot of thought and design, and we design that intention, it can be amazing. So what a great takeaway. A lot of great lessons. Thank you, Amy, for bringing Ashley into our world here and joining our journey. And everyone, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week, and we'll get to experience more of these amazing folks and growth as we go through. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone.